when you don't move, at least for me, I can only speak from my own experience. When I don't move, I don't feel the need to move. It's kind of a crazy reinforcing thing. And so even though I had been, an athlete all my life, I had exercised regularly for a long time, spending a year of not really moving, it was so hard to get myself moving again. And so I needed some oomph, some extra motivation to make it happen. And so I asked some friends if they wanted to do a weekly hike with me. And I think in 2021, perhaps the only movement I really did was that weekly hike. I might have done something else, but I think I might have only done that weekly hike. On this episode of the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, I talk about the personal event that knocked me off of my trajectory of healthy living and what I've been doing the last few years to get back onto that, including tweaking my morning ritual. And then I talk about changing bodies, changing wardrobes. I'm 50, Natasha's 50. We are in a stage of life where hormones plays a big part in what's going on inside and outside. And I talk about that all coming up on the next podcast episode starting now. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my Thursday chat. For those of you who are watching live, wherever platform you are on, we also put this audio only up as the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. So welcome. It's Thursday. And I go live every Thursday at 9:30, sometimes with guests, sometimes without guests. Actually, my friend Christine was supposed to join me today, but something got in the way. Most of my friends are mom friends. And so sometimes you have to be a mom first, and I totally get it. And so I am here alone today on the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. And as you know, my name's Allegra, and I have a business along with Natasha called Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, or BYWD as we call it. And for those listening on the podcast, I'm holding up our bouquet of books. And so we write workbooks that are all short reads. You can get through it in 45 minutes or less, and they're all designed to help you live a life where you can prioritize yourself, save time, and accomplish your goals. Because we know as working moms how hard it can be to do anything just for yourself. You have drop off, you have extracurricular activities, you have sick kiddos, then you have your work. Oh, wait, and then there's you as a person. And we firmly believe that by putting yourself first, you can help avoid burnout. I don't know if you've seen any of our posts, or if you go onto our website, we also have a blog. It's bywdreams.com. And I will just pop it up right now on the bottom of the screen. If you go there and you see we have a blog, and you can see that we have different posts about things like burnout. And actually recently this year, in fact, just a couple months ago, the Surgeon General said that parental burnout is an epidemic. I just made up a word. An epidemic. An academic epidemic. An epidemic. And this is something that I think has been intuited by many parents for a long time. However, to see it validated by the Surgeon General was powerful. Natasha and I both talked about how, wow, okay, maybe because most of the recommendations are policy related. Most of the recommendations that the Surgeon General makes with regards to parental burnout are things that really are beyond your and my control as individuals. And he talks about things like more support in the work environment for working parents. And I think it's really amazing. We can all agree. What are we talking about today, Richard? Today, I am talking about tweaking my morning ritual. And I'm also talking about how wardrobes change as we age. So if that's interesting to you, I look forward to you sticking around. And so anyway, that's what we talk about on Harness the Power of Planning. It's all about helping working moms prioritize yourself, save time, and accomplish your goals. And so today I'm talking about, the topic today actually is about changing bodies, changing wardrobes. Natasha and I are both going through perimenopause, and, we things change as you age. And so we're going to talk about that today, or I'm going to talk about that today. And I'm also going to talk about how I've been tweaking my morning ritual. So for those of you who haven't read our book, we have a book called Rock Your Morning, and I will put it up in the QR code so that you can find it. And it is all about how having a morning ritual can really help you prioritize yourself. I am not being hyperbolic when I say that my morning ritual is what keeps me sane and healthy, because the fact is things can go totally off track during the day. But the beauty of having a morning ritual is that I know that when I go to bed at night, I get to wake up and have my morning ritual to set the tone for the day. And the thing is that a morning ritual doesn't just happen. It really evolves. So if you don't have a morning ritual right now, don't worry. You can start tomorrow. And we encourage you, if you've read our book, we encourage you to start small, because the only way you're going to create real change is by starting small, right? We've all we've all done that thing when the new year starts and we say, "Okay, I'm going to change these 10 things about me." And that doesn't work so well, because when you try and change a lot of things at once, nothing ends up actually changing. And so what we suggest to you is start with one small thing. Start with making your bed. If you don't know where to start, making your bed, there's so much brain science behind the benefits of making your bed. It's kind of crazy how much brain science there is. It's been shown to give you a sense of confidence, a sense of accomplishment. It gives you a sense of executive function or control over your day, because you're like, hey, here's something I can do. Also, because your bed makes up such a huge part of most people's bedrooms, when you straighten your bed, your whole room looks neater. And that is just really great for your brain in terms of everything in its place. However, one of the most surprising benefits of making your bed, in my opinion, is the fact that at night, when you go to unmake your bed, you actually have it. Science has shown that people sleep better, because the process of unmaking the bed sends something to the brain and says, like, hey, you're going to sleep now. I'm going to start winding you down. So, morning ritual, so powerful. Mine has evolved over decades, and I talk about my morning ritual at great length in the book. And it's interesting because this book was written, let's see, I think we published it. Yeah, it's been 2 years already. Amazing. So what's interesting is that my morning ritual is always evolving, because you are always evolving. For instance, there were times when I've usually been a morning person. However, there were times when I was struggling with perimenopause and sleeping through the night and getting quality sleep. And because of that, I was having trouble waking up in the morning. And so my morning ritual had to shift as I figured that out. So my latest shift just started a few months ago. And it was kind of driven by two separate changes in my life. So one was my child, who I've homeschooled her whole life, started regular high school. And because of that, I now needed to drive her somewhere in the morning. My child was never an early riser. And so I kind of was able to have a leisurely few hours in the morning. And now I have to get up a lot earlier in order to get her to school. And so that affected my ability to get up around 6 and kind of have, 1 to 2 hours to myself. I no longer had that opportunity. At the same time, I had read a book called The 5 AM Club, and as you can probably imagine by the title, it does recommend getting up at 5 AM. However, it also recommends a whole bunch of other things, and, uh, The 5 AM Club it's a good book. It has a lot of great ideas in it. And it's written, if you've ever read The Alchemist or Celestine Prophecy, it's written in that style, where it's a nonfiction-ish book in terms of the information it wants to get across to you, but it's told in the story of a parable. And so I it's an interesting book. I enjoyed it. It is very dense. I will say that. So if you are new to this idea of a morning ritual, it might be overwhelming. I just want to put that out there. Not that it's not a great book. Read it. It's a great book, but it is dense. And so the combination of reading the 5 a.m. club and my child's new schedule convinced me, okay, I'm going to start getting up at 5 a.m., which is earlier than I've ever gotten up. I usually get up at 6:15. That's been my usual time. So 5 a.m. is an hour and 15 minutes earlier. And I am now on day, hold on, I've been writing them down in my planner. I am now on day 58 of 66. And there's a lot of brain science about committing to something for 66 days. Some people might even say 3 months is really how long you should commit to something in order to make a real change. In the, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it was commonly thought that if you do something for 21 days or 24, it was basically around a month that you could create a change. And the new science suggests a longer time frame. However, what I have found from personal experience is that the more fun that I can make this new thing that I wanna do, the quicker it becomes a habit. And actually, there is brain science in behind habit formation that if you can find a way to make it fun, if you can find a way to make doing the thing enjoyable, then you are much more likely to do it and it becomes a habit quicker because our brains, if our brains like it, it's given us those chemicals that will cement it as a habit faster. So for instance, if you are wanting to drink more water in the morning, a great tip is to just put a full glass of water right by the side of your bed. But if there's some way to make it fun, maybe you have a special glass that you use for that first glass of water. I know that when I'm writing in my planner, I make it fun for myself by using a special pen. So when you can make things fun, you're much more likely to stick with it. So I decided to get up at 5 a.m. And the reality is now I basically get an hour of time to focus on my morning ritual in the morning, and I'm not able to get everything done that I wanna get done now. And so because I didn't used to exercise in the morning, I used to exercise at 4 p.m. However, the 5 a.m. club is has very compelling reasons behind exercise in the morning, which is this is something new I learned actually. It talks about how many people in the first half hour of waking up, get a dump of a brain chemical that is stressful. And it's interesting because, I was an anthropology major in undergrad, and I am thinking about the fact that, I wonder if that is designed to just like get you going because, hey, back then, if you didn't start looking for food, you weren't going to eat, right? So it's like, hey, body, get going. It's time for you to get moving. And so getting in a workout first thing in the morning is a great way to dump this hormone out of your body, burning it out. And the goal is to get sweaty. That's when you know that you've done what you wanted to do with this chemical. So I thought that was really interesting and that was really compelling. And so now that I've added working out into my morning ritual is longer. My morning ritual used to be about an hour. So getting up at 5 would have been fine. That would have allowed me to finish what I need to do. But now adding in all of the things that the 5 a.m. club wants me to do basically takes up a whole hour by itself. So from 5 to 6, I'm kind of doing my 5 a.m. club stuff. And then I pretty much have to get ready to get my kiddo out the door. And then when I get home from driving her, that's when I get to do some other parts of my morning ritual, like my elaborate skincare ritual that I love to do. And so it's been challenging tweaking this because I love my skincare ritual. It is so relaxing for me. For me, it's a form of meditation. Nothing allows me to focus on the moment like doing skincare. And it's interesting too because there are the benefits that you get from hugging someone, the chemicals that are released, you get those too when you touch yourself. And I just find that really calming for the whole day. So, what I'm struggling with, and this is where the tweaking of my morning ritual comes in, as I mentioned at the top of the live chat, what I'm struggling with is figuring out how to order things so that I love my morning ritual as much as I did before the 5 a.m. club. Because before the 5 a.m. club, I started my day with a few short things. So I get up, I make my bed, I take my supplements, I empty the dish rack, and then I wash my face and go into my skincare routine, right? So it's not a lot of time between getting up and my skincare ritual. And my skincare ritual takes about 15 minutes. So it's one of the longer parts of my morning ritual. And I'm struggling now because I don't love the parts of the 5 a.m. club as much as I love the skincare ritual, and pushing it down into later parts of my day. I find that it's not giving me the mental boost that it was giving me when I was doing my morning ritual, my skincare ritual, as one of the first things in my morning ritual. So I did commit to following through with the 5 a.m. club for 66 days at least before I decide where I'm going to how I'm gonna tweak it. But I just know that while I'm in liking the things that the 5 a.m. club is giving me, I'm not liking what it took away from me. And, this is really just there's trial and error when it comes to creating your morning ritual, because there are gonna be some things that feel like a chore. Like, for instance, meditation is not something I've managed to keep in a morning ritual longer than for a couple months. And I think I don't know, maybe someday I'll finally master it. I've tried so many different styles. I've taken so many I've done so many retreats. I've taken so many lessons on it. I really struggle with it. But I do feel like I get other types of meditative, mindfulness in other places by being really mindful when I'm doing my skincare, when I'm washing the dishes, when I'm making my bed. So, that is what it is. It's an ongoing struggle for me, the whole meditation thing. But what I want to say is that a morning ritual is trial and error. It is figuring out the best spot to put things in so that have a morning ritual. There's no one to please but yourself. It's so fun in that way. You don't have to check in with anyone and say, "Hey, how's this working for you?" No, you get to just say to yourself, "I want to do this thing. Now how can I make it happen?" So, I am struggling with that, and I will we're looking to update this book next year in 2025. It'll have been 3 years that it's been out. And one of the things I want to write about is the struggle when you have to maybe divide up your morning ritual into 2 parts. This is something Natasha has talked about forever because she has had school drop off as a thing. And it's interesting because this year it's changed and now she doesn't have school drop off. So we'll have to talk about that soon, about how her morning ritual has shifted now that she's not doing school drop off, and how my morning ritual has shifted now that I am doing school drop off, because it is definitely a big thing. And let's see, Richard here spoke about his morning ritual. I love it. Richard, my routine every day is something for me, something for my wife, and something for kids. I love that. I make the bed, I do the dishes or make my wife's coffee, I get the kids breakfast, then work out. It's great. Yes. See, making the bed has got to be a part of it. Thank you, Richard, for sharing that. That's fantastic. And I'd also love to know, any books that you all have read or some philosophies that you have with your morning ritual. I'd love to read those. We're always looking to learn from others because, we've all experienced slightly different things. So, and Richard, I'd love to hear what you do for your kids in there too. Let's see. I'd love to know what you do for your kids. And in terms of working out, I have really gotten into shorter workouts. When I was younger, I used to do 60 or even 90-minute workouts, and I just don't have the attention span anymore for that. And so I've really been looking into shorter workouts. I've been investigating and I've experimented with it off and on for a few years, but I'm getting back into it again. What's called super slow weightlifting. I've been getting really into that. And I read a book. I think I was talking about it last week, called Body by Science. So for anyone who's read Body by Science or does Super Slow, I'm really curious what your thoughts are on that because it's definitely fantastic in terms of time management because it recommends, 12-minute workouts. So anyway, I'll talk about that another time. So on to the topic for today, changing bodies, changing wardrobes. I turned 50 this year. Natasha turned 50 this year. And, the age 50 doesn't necessarily mean anything so much as the fact that, we are older now. And I, at this point, am coming off of a period of not prioritizing my health that started with my father passing in 2020. And he didn't pass because of COVID. He had been declining for a while. So it wasn't sudden, but it also wasn't expected. My father had an amazing spirit, and to the end, he was saying, "This is not the end for me," which, was amazing. However, ugh, I'm gonna tear up right now. Um, when he passed, it knocked me for a loop. It did. Just sudden outbursts of crying for 6 months at least. There were just sudden outbursts of crying for no reason. Just I'd be washing the dishes and tears, waterworks. And I've only lost one other person close to me in my life. So it's not like this is something that I have a lot of experience with. And that was my grandfather, and he passed 14 years ago. So it was, it's been a while. Plus, when my grandfather passed, I was actually pregnant. And so I really couldn't I had things to think about. I couldn't let myself go the same way. But also with my grandfather, when he passed, we were able to have a really nice memorial. It was so beautiful. It really just a real sense of closure. When my father passed 2020, couldn't have a funeral. So I don't know. I guess it felt like I wasn't able to grieve the way I really wanted to grieve. So coming off of that, and then of course we're in the pandemic and there's all these things happening. So I want to say there was a solid year there where I did not do regular exercise, which was really unusual for me. I've always really enjoyed movement and staying active. And so I've slowly been sort of digging my way out of that. In 2021, I started doing these sunrise hikes once a week just to like get back into movement. Here, I mean, the crazy thing is when you don't move, at least for me, I can only speak from my own experience. When I don't move, I don't feel the need to move. It's kind of a crazy reinforcing thing. And so even though I had been, an athlete all my life, I had exercised regularly for a long time, spending a year of not really moving, it was so hard to get myself moving again. And so I needed some oomph, some extra motivation to make it happen. And so I asked some friends if they wanted to do a weekly hike with me. And I think in 2021, perhaps the only movement I really did was that weekly hike. I might have done something else, but I think I might have only done that weekly hike. But 2021, I was kind of lackadaisical. It's like, can we make it happen? Great. Can we not? Okay, no big deal. But then in 2022, I think was when I started saying, okay, I want to hit at least 30 hikes, 30 sunrise hikes a year. And somehow putting a number to it and making it more of a commitment actually helped me to make moving more of a priority in my life. And I started doing more movement in 2022. And then 2022, 2023, 2024, I've hit 30 hikes, sunrise hikes. Actually, I'm up to I think 32, I think in 2024. 31 or 32. I'm over 30 already, which is really exciting because I've never been at 30 this early in the year. So that's been really great. And I've also been doing a lot of other movement. I joined ClassPass, and I've been playing tennis. I've been doing Legree. I guess I'll just end with Legree because some people don't call it Legree Pilates, but it's a Pilates informed exercise. So I've been doing Legree. I've been doing super slow weight training. I've been doing metabolic renewal workouts. So I've been doing lots of different things. And I'm now getting to the point where I think now since I've had my Fitbit for about a year, I have been regularly getting in 20 plus days of exercise for about a year now. So that's been really good. However, there are some, there as you know, if you've listened to me talk, I'm in year 9 of perimenopause. That's right, you did not hear that wrong, year 9. Menopause can last a decade easily, and, it's funny because we all are used to hearing about menopause, and if you don't know, the definition of menopause is 12 months in a row with no period. Perimenopause is the time before menopause when your hormones are diminishing. And for some people, this happens quickly. For some people, it happens slowly. I guess I'm one of those slow people. But I knew that I was entering perimenopause about 9 years ago because after decades of having 12 periods a year, I went down to 11. And then the next year, 10. And the next year, 9. And it just went like that until about 4 years ago. I started having some other symptoms like difficulty sleeping through the night and suddenly feeling warm for no reason. So I started having some other symptoms of perimenopause, and definitely as I'm nearing the finish line, it could be any day now, people. It could be any day. As I've been nearing the finish line, I've definitely noticed that my body has changed. And I don't know that it's changed permanently because as I said, like my exercising has kind of been going up the last year. So I don't know how much of my body changing is because I am coming out of this period of not being as active as I used to be. So I don't know how much of it is because of that. And I don't know how much of it is because of hormones. Because there's definitely, changes in hormones can lead to changing bodies, and that's where this idea of this topic came up, changing bodies, changing wardrobes. However, I am at the age and, maybe you're feeling this as well. I'm at the age where I've lived long enough now that I have whole parts of my closet with clothes that I don't wear, but I'm keeping, let's say, either for sentimental reasons or because I really love them and I wish I could wear them again. And so let me just address the sentimental ones. For instance, I used to own a store called Green and Greener. Uh, it was an eco-friendly, sustainable shop, and I loved that store. It was like walking into a dream come true every day. But when I opened my store, Amazon only sold books and there was no such thing as a smartphone. And by the time I closed my store, Amazon sold everything and people were walking in with their smartphones saying, "Hey, here's the price on Amazon. Can you meet that?" And of course I couldn't. And so anyway, I have a lot of green clothing from when I owned Green and Greener because I did a lot of publicity. I did a lot of public speaking on television and on panels, all related to sustainability. And so I have all this green clothing that I used to wear for Green and Greener. And I love it. I'm very emotionally attached to it. But green is not a color that I wear a lot by choice because it's not one of my favorite colors to wear. And so it's funny because I don't know what to do with these clothes. And, it's been over 10 years since I closed Green and Greener. And so I have this whole portion of wardrobe that I don't wear. And that doesn't even really fit me either, but I am emotionally attached to it. Then there is the clothing that you love that you don't fit into anymore. And that can be hard as well. So, what I decided to do is I decided to put all of these clothes away into a bag and I put but in the back of my closet. And I've decided that in a year, if I don't ever think to look in that bag, I'm just going to give it away without looking at it. Okay. Now, I'll just back up and add one other thing. One of the interesting things about having a changing body is that you might not always be aware of it. And I know that I wasn't always aware of it because I don't weigh myself. I don't take measurements. I don't know. I just don't really do that stuff. And when you're going from casual clothes to less casual clothes, you might not realize like, oh, well, your casual clothes are a lot more forgiving than your less casual clothes. And then there was the whole pandemic when like you didn't really need to wear anything except your casual clothes. So the whole fact that my body was changing really hit home for me because of the fact that I have a daughter, right? And I have a daughter who's a teenager, so she's pretty much an adult in terms of size. And she borrowed something from my closet the other day that it's so funny because it's a belt. And this belt actually it's a metal belt, so it's like a chain belt. This belt actually belonged to my mom. And I remember when I took it from my mom's closet and she took it from my closet and it fit her well. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I took that belt from your grandmother. That belt belonged to your grandmother." And she was done wearing it and she gave it back to me and I went to put it around my waist and it didn't fit. It didn't fit by a good 2 inches. And that's when it really hit home for me, like, "Oh my gosh, my child is wearing clothes now that I took when I became adult size, and I don't fit them anymore." So that was kind of eye-opening, and, maybe that's something that you only really realize when you have a child who's wearing your clothes. If I had a child who wasn't wearing my clothes, maybe it wouldn't have hit me so hard. Um, but I guess in a way, there was something about the fact that, "Huh, I've been here before, it's just I was on the other side of it." My mother was the one who, "Oh, these clothes no longer fit," and so she kind of gave them to me. And so I went through my closet and I pulled out some other things that I had liked but weren't fitting me anymore, or I had an emotional connection to, and they weren't fitting me anymore. And I asked my kiddo if she wanted them, and she took a bunch of them. And it was interesting because that actually kind of made it easier for me because now they're in her closet and not mine. And I know that, like, hey, if for some reason in another year when I've got my cholesterol under control, if you listen to last week's episode, you know that I recently my cholesterol is in at a point now where I have to pay attention to it. And again, this is related to perimenopause. So go ahead and listen to that. That was episode 75 of the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, or it was October 10th, 2024, for anyone who wants to look at the video version of it. So it'll be interesting to see in a year as I'm working on changing my diet to eat more whole food plant based, which is how I ate before I got pregnant. I was actually whole food plant based until my third trimester of pregnancy, and that was when I started eating meat again. And then I breastfed for 3 years, and I was eating meat, and then I just never stopped. And so now that I have to go now that my cholesterol is raised because of perimenopause and, I am working on changing that with my diet, and now that I am exercising more regularly, and it'll be interesting to see where I am in a year. It'll be interesting to know how much of my changing body is this is just where I am, and how much of it is this is because I wasn't prioritizing my health for a solid year, and I'm kind of digging back out from under it. I would probably know faster if I was more into doing something like super like 3 months of hardcore, food and exercise changes, but I just find that that doesn't work for me. because I don't know if it's my, rebel tendency. If you've listened to Gretchen Rubin, I have kind of a rebel tendency. Like, I don't like being told to do things, even if it's me telling me to do the thing. I need to do it for reasons that make sense to me, and then I need to transition slowly. When I was my healthiest, which was really, up until I was super healthy up until, my pregnancy, but I was even healthy after my pregnancy. I mean, I was I got back to my pre-pregnancy weight pretty quickly given the fact that, breastfeeding did not work for me the way it works for most people, where because I was breastfeeding, my body was like, "You need to hold on to these pounds." But, after my child weaned, I pretty much got back to my pre-pregnancy weight pretty quickly. And so, yeah, I was super duper healthy really all of my 30s, super healthy. And so when I was my healthiest, what I realized is that I kinda just got there by making these little changes. I'm kinda going back to what I was talking about with the morning ritual, right? If you want sustained change, you have to do a little bit at a time, and I've definitely found that that works for me. Anytime I've done, like, a super 3-month intense workout, and I have done them over my life, on maybe I've done that 5 times where I've gotten into super, uber crazy good shape, it doesn't last because it's just not fun and it's not a sustainable change. It's not a change I want to continue making. And so I'm just going back to, introducing more plant-based foods into my diet, getting in more movement, being a lot more purposeful about my movement, and we'll see where it takes me in a year. I'm really interested to see where I get. So thank you for joining me today. I will see you next Thursday at 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And next week, Natasha will be joining me. I know she's joining me that week. And what is the topic? I know we have a topic picked out. I just want to find it. The topic next week will be on oops, nope, that's not it. There we go. The topic next week will be on how to pick a planner, a paper planner. If you follow Natasha and I, then you know that we are huge fans, huge believers in paper planners. And this is the planner that I have been using for I don't know how long now, maybe a decade. You can see it's quite full at this point because it has lived a full life this year. And we will be talking about how to pick a paper planner next year. And maybe we will also talk some more about tweaking the morning ritual because I'd love to hear what Natasha's feeling now that she is not doing school drop off anymore. So thank you for joining us. And also, if it is October 17th, Halloween is kind of around the corner. If you listen to last week's episode, I talked about how to create a holiday game plan. This is the perfect time to create a game plan for all of the holidays coming up, whichever ones you celebrate, whether it's, Halloween or if it's Muertos or if it's Diwali or Thanksgiving or, Indigenous Peoples Day, whatever you're celebrating all the way through to, I celebrate Lunar New Year, so I kind of go through Lunar New Year for celebration. If you wanna include, Nowruz in there, Persian New Year, feel free, but it's just designed to help you be a little bit thoughtful around the holiday process so that it can be fun for you and not just overwhelming, so many things happening. So check that out. Episode 75 of the Harness the Power of Planning podcast, or October 10th, 2024, of the live YouTube video post. And thank you for joining me. I'll see you next week. Dream wild, wild dreamers. Thanks for joining us for the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen.